Good afternoon, family and friends. We thank you for joining us for Restoration Chapel's Traveling Stories. Today we are excited to bring on one of our local pastors here in Williamston, South Carolina. His name is Larry Baldwin. He is the pastor of Hillcrest Baptist Church. He's been there for 14 years, and we're super excited to bring him on and be a part of our stories that we've been giving out. And with that being said, Pastor Larry, thank you again for joining us. But we always start off with our testimony. And do you remember how life was before you met Jesus Christ?
Well, I'll tell you, my story is a little bit unusual. Of course, I think it's typical with a lot of people, but I grew up, I was born and raised in Malden, South Carolina, and when Greenville County Schools came along and they wanted our farm, I went to Malden First Baptist. So when I was around 11 years old, they wanted our farm to be able to build Malden High School on. So we moved where they could build Malden High School on our farm, and then I moved to a wonderful God's country, Possum Kingdom. That's where I grew up, in Possum Kingdom, when I was 11. So we started going to a church. It was Cedar Shoals Baptist Church. And I remember I had been in church, of course, my whole life. My family has always been in church. But I think what happened to me, I hate what happened to me, really. But, you know, it's all in God's plans. God has been amazing in my life. He has led me to some amazing places. But as far as my salvation, I remember when my family went to Cedar Shoals, and we had visited a little bit, and then we were going to join the church. I remember sitting on the front row. And, of course, the preacher went down and was talking to each one of our family members, and he talked to me. And he said, you want to get saved? And I said, sure. You know, and then baptism came. I didn't even honestly, I did not even understand what it was all about. But still, I was in church. I grew in knowledge of something, you know. I mean, I was working on this. I mean, I had all the head knowledge, but it wasn't here.
That's right.
Later on in my teen years, I was around 17, went to a lot of people probably had never even heard his name, but it was a Tierce Green concert. It was a musician. He was at Furman University. And I knew at the end of that concert, when the invitation was given, I knew something was happening. Yeah. You know, I really believe on that day, Christ came into my heart. It was real. And ever since then, you know, I know I got God living inside of me. And man, I want others to feel what I feel.
That's right.
I want others to be led like I am being led. You know, oh my goodness, I have a hard time talking about it because I'm just so excited about Jesus.
Yes, definitely.
Tell them about it.
And I think that's awesome, because I think a lot of us grew up as children and was told, hey, do you want to be saved? And, you know, we said the prayer, but we really didn't have that relationship. Like you said, we had that knowledge of
yeah, because it's not in a sentence. It's not just in a, you know, a lot of times when I'm especially speaking to children and even sometimes adults, sometimes if they want to pray a prayer and ask Jesus into their heart, they don't know what to say. You know, a lot of times I'll say, oh, well, you know, I can guide you, but there's no magical words. Right. You know, it's here. And I'll say, you know, if you want me to voice a prayer and you repeat after me, that's one thing, but you have to mean it.
That's right.
It's not this specific thing. You know, it's all about here. God wants to hear our heart, you know. And not long ago, a little boy come up to me and he wanted to be saved. Yeah. And I had the same conversation. And I said, do you want to pray? And he said, I want to pray myself. And then he had the most awesome prayer. And that pumps me up when I see a kid And he just prayed the most awesome prayer. And, and I believe with all my heart he is saved. And, but, isn't that what we're supposed to be doing? We're supposed to be out in the community. And most pastors in the area know, there's nothing special about me at all, but most pastors in the area know I don't care if you're Church of God, if you're Pentecostal, if you're Baptist, if you're Methodist or whatever. If we're wanting to carry on the name of Christ, if we're wanting to build his kingdom, we're all on the same team, man.
That's right.
We're all on the same team.
That's right. And, I think about, the day my life changed. I remember the excitement after I'd given my life to God. Not only just the excitement, but a peace. And I asked my pastor very quickly, what can we do? Do you remember how you got into the serving the local church after you gave your life to God?
Yeah. When I was 20 years old, I had always been a part of the youth group and everything. And this was at Cedar Shoals over on 247 in between where I place and Belton. I was asked would I work with the youth. Like I say, I was 20 years old, started working with the youth. And actually I was in youth ministry for 26 years.
Okay.
My first degree was in architectural engineering. I worked actually at a steel company, Jurgen Metals in Piedmont. I worked there for over 15 years while I was doing youth ministry on the side, just volunteer. But when I was, and then I was 24 when I got married. I kept on doing youth ministry, kept on working. But when I was 34 years old is when I really believed that God called me into full-time ministry.
Yeah.
And but I knew I needed some education. We sold our home. I moved for the first year. I drove up 300 miles on Monday to seminary and lived in the men's dorm 300 miles back on Friday. I did that for a year while my wife and kids stayed down here.
Uh-huh.
And I would just see them on weekends. But after a year of that, man, I wanted them to come experience everything I was experiencing. So they moved up there with me. And so I got my bachelor's degree in biblical studies at Southeastern Theological College.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew God had called me. I don't know that I specifically knew exactly all the details of my calling. I'll just put it that way. I know that might sound strange. I knew I was going to proclaim the gospel. I knew I was going to preach.
Yes.
I continued in student ministry. And my goodness, my story goes all over the place. I don't know. Do you want me to keep on or do you want me to
keep going? Awesome. Yeah, definitely.
Well, we lived in the dorms or in the townhouses at Southeastern Seminary in Wake Forest. While I was there, I became minister of students at Bahama Baptist Church in Bahama, North Carolina. That's right north of Durham. So we were there. And then from there, God taught us also to live on nothing because we didn't have nothing.
Yeah.
So I think that was all a preparation too.
Definitely.
I went from making a good bit, being the architectural engineering degree and working in the steel industry. I made good money, but I went to working on seminary campus in a post office for $5 an hour.
Wow.
My wife worked in the cafeteria at seminary for $5 an hour. So we were combined making $10 an hour. But whenever I surrendered full-time ministry and me and my wife got before the church, told them everything was going on, there was a lady that came forward and said, I tell you what I'd like to do. I would like to start a Larry Baldwin school fund. And I thought, wow, that's awesome. So I went off seminary. Every time that school tuition was due I needed books. Uh, most of the time, I don't know how. Well, it was God, but we made our rent and we paid our power bill and stuff like that. But different things that every time I needed money, I would call and I would say, "Hey, my tuition's due, or I need to buy some books." I called the treasurer of the church and I said, "How much is there? Can y'all help me out a little bit?" He said, "How much you need?" I told him. He sent a check. All through seminary, I never had to pay one dime of tuition or books or anything. God worked through people at the local church to make all of that happen. He paved the way.
Yes.
So it was awesome. And then, of course, we were having to pay, the rent. And I never will forget, it was $365 a month. That $365 a month was probably might as well have been $1,500 a month. But there was a man at our church that said, "Hey, would you like to come live in these apartments that I'm building?" And I said, "Well, what is it?" He said, "Come look at them." We went and looked at them, brand new, 2-bedroom, 2-bath. I mean, phenomenal. They were fancy. They were nice. I said, "How much are these a month?" And he said, $685. I said, "Okay, yeah, that's great." He said, "How would you like to live here?" I said, "Well, yeah, I would like to live here." It was closer to the church I was serving in. And he said, "If you'll just manage the apartments for us, I'll let you stay here free." So I said, "What does managing actually entail?" He said, "Somebody just be on call to take rent. Somebody moves out, I might have to pay a little bit, and I'd cut grass some or whatever, but we managed them and we stay." So I know that God paved the way.
That's right.
God provided the entire time. And I continued at Bahama, and then I felt God wanting us to move. I didn't know where or how. I had never experienced anything like this before, and I looked at different options through one of the offices at seminary, and I could read in a notebook of different ministry positions open across the United States. So I started talking with a church, First Baptist in Johnsonville, South Carolina. It was minister of youth and music.
Okay.
Because I've been in music my whole life.
Yes.
So I interviewed with them. It went well. They would provide us a home to live in. The salary, I remember the salary was $36,000 a year. Well, that was a whole lot more than I was making at the time, And I thought, okay, well, we'll look into this. But in the meantime, there was a church. I told them, I said, "There's a church in Southern Illinois." That might as well have been in Africa.
Yes, yes.
It was in Southern Illinois, and they wanted to know could they fly me out and interview. So I said, "Sure." So I was honest with the Johnsonville church. I told them I'd come to Illinois. I remember getting on the plane and flying out there, and on the way, I thought, what is my grandkids, what is my kids' grandma gonna think? I might as well be in Africa because she can't drive all the way out there. Satan started messing with my mind, and thinking about all the other stuff and not what God wanted me to do.
That's right.
So, I get out there, and the preacher picks me up. His name was Brother Jimmy. He picked me up at the airport, and he's one of those people that you'd be going down the interstate, and he would mash the gas and let off, and mash the gas, according to how fast he was talking, how fast we would go. Well, a lot of people know that I'm easy to get car sick if I'm not driving. So I got sicker and sicker and sicker, and I thought, oh Lord, please don't let me get sick. But we get there, and he takes me to church, and it was a small country church in a grove of trees, and beautiful place. built in the late 1800s, so a gorgeous place, but, I'm thinking, okay, can't come here? And it was just me. Kim and the girls didn't go with me, but we went around the community, and then we were going down through there, and the car started cutting off.
Oh my goodness!
The preacher's car, and come to find out, he gave out of gas, and I thought, I just don't know about this. But anyway, we got gas. He took, and the people met with me. They had a little get together, and they met with me, and of course, anybody listening to me can tell I'm from the country, and I talk like a country hick. I don't talk like somebody from Illinois. I'll tell you that. But they sat around, they looked at me, and I'd be talking, and I'd stop, and they said, say something else, because they wanted to hear what I talk like. But anyway, so I thought it was a nice place, very nice people. But I got back on the plane, I thought, there's no way. There is no way. So I get back, I tell them no. I tell the church in Johnsonville, yes. So it was set. We're going to have a big barbecue. I'm going to lead the youth Sunday school. I'm going to lead the music and everything at Johnsonville on a Sunday morning. So in a couple of weeks from that time, we were going to go on a Saturday and have that barbecue and everything, meet everybody. But that 2 weeks leading up to that barbecue, I cannot tell you how miserable I was. Miserable. Horrible. And Kim and I was sitting in the office, to make a long story short. Kim and I was sitting in the office of those apartments, and she said, isn't it something? We have told God that we will go anywhere. Why are we so miserable?
Yes.
And I said, Kim, you're right. We'll go anywhere, but we won't go to Illinois, will we? And she got upset, and she walked out, because I think God had been dealing with her too.
Yes.
She knew what her mom would think and everything, not being able to see the grandkids. So she come back in a little bit later, and she said, you're exactly right. And I said, well, we've already made a mess of things. We just said to God.
Yes.
Because we told that church no without really praying about it a lot. And we told that church yes, because we just thought that would be the easiest thing to do. But it's so awesome how God had his hand on all of this, because I called that preacher in Johnsonville, and I told him how miserable I was, how uneasy I was. I could not get a peace about nothing with coming to Johnsonville. And it was so great, because that preacher said, Larry, let me tell you something. If you don't have a peace about it, it's not of God. He said, believe me, let me tell you my story. He had the same exact story.
Really?
Oh, I thought, wow, isn't that? And so here, I turned him down. Of course, now here's the church in Illinois. I'd already turned him down. So I called, and I called them and didn't get an answer. They didn't call me back. So I thought, well, they don't want to have nothing to do with me. So the next day, the chairman of the search committee was a cross-country track coach, and they were off on a meet. That's why I didn't call them back. So this was on a Saturday, late Saturday afternoon. He called me, and I told him the whole story that I'm telling you. And he said, so what are you saying, Brother Larry? I said, well, he said, would you come? And I said, I know for a fact, I know with all my heart that we're supposed to be in Illinois. I don't know how in the world we're going to come all the way out there, but I know that's where we're supposed to be, because God had confirmed it in me and my wife's heart. And he said, well, listen, I said, first of all, I said, have y'all interviewed anybody else? And he said, no. Come to find out, I didn't know this at the time. Come to find out, there was an elderly lady stood up in the church, and she said, "Don't interview anyone else, because God has told me that Larry Baldwin would come and be our associate pastor, minister of students. Don't interview." I didn't know that.
Yeah.
But God, she said God told her that. So when I called and told him, he shares it with the church the next morning. They didn't even have regular service. It was a praise service. And, it just broke out, everybody, giving testimonies, and they were singing and just praising God for answering the prayer that they had prayed.
Yes.
And I went out there, I tell you what, there's a few students and few children, but when we left, God had blessed and blessed and blessed and blessed, man. We had an awesome ministry. I still talk to people out there. I got a good friend, Candy, her and her husband, Charlie. We keep up with them, and we want to go back. Lightning struck their church last year and burned it down, and they've rebuilt, but they hadn't dedicated yet. So whenever they dedicate, I want to go and be a part of that, though. But so God led us there.
Yes.
Had a wonderful ministry. My wife's parents and grandparents were having a lot of health problems and stuff, and it was hard on my wife.
Yes.
So things were sort of I don't know how to explain it, but it was tough on her.
Mm-hmm.
I remember going out in a wheat field beside the parsonage. They gave us a house to live in. Oh, that was another thing. Let me tell you that real quick. The church in Johnsonville,
Yes.
$30,000 in a house to live in.
Yes.
Now, the cost of living is a whole lot more
Oh, definitely.
Illinois than here. Their salary was $18,000 a year. And they give us a house to live in. But out there, if our car would mess up, tear up, whatever, someone would come pick it up. They go have it fixed. They bring it back. We never wanted for anything.
Yes.
I took care of it. But see, we were living on a shoestring in seminary. That was all God's preparation.
That's right.
What was going to happen in Illinois.
That's right.
So anyway, but I remember going out in that wheat field, crying out to God. God, my wife's miserable, and I said, I'd give anything, God, if you would take us within a couple hours, or maybe within 4 hours, because we was 11 hours away.
Yes.
Driving distance. Could you take us back near home where she could check on her family? We could check on her family. And I prayed. I prayed a lot. And my wife was just really having some health issues, some struggles herself. And then the minister of music at Calvary Baptist Church in Williamston,
Yes.
the town that we moved from to go to seminary, his wife, Stacy Brooks, she was my best friend in high school.
Mm-hmm.
So I emailed her and said, "Hey, would you get your husband to keep his eye open for like a minister of students, associate pastor, or some minister of students in the area?" And she said, I never will forget, she emailed me back. She said, "Larry, we're looking for minister students. Send your resume." I sent my resume. I drove down right after 9/11, so it was really, really a scary time. I wondered if I would have enough gas to get back, or gas, the gas shortage, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So I drove down, interviewed, thought it went well, didn't know. I left and drove back, started driving back that night, stopped in Knoxville, then went on in the next day. I got a call the next day, and they wanted me to come to Calvary Baptist Church, which is in the same town. I didn't know nothing about it, but in the same town from where I came from. So I was minister of students at Calvary for about 5.5 years, before someone from Hillcrest approached me And listen to me, I'm doing all the talking. Do you want me to stop and let you ask?
Keep going, keep going. I have questions, but that'll come. So keep going.
Okay. But anyway, I was just doing my ministry. I loved my ministry at Calvary.
Yes.
God bless, man. He blessed so much. I saw him do so much in and through my ministry there, and I give him all the glory for all of that. But I was approached by someone from Hillcrest, and they said, "We want you to come be our pastor." I thought, God didn't call me to be no pastor. I'm good. I'm comfortable. I'm doing what I believe God wants me to do right now, Well, about 6 months later, I was approached again. And I said, "Nah, I told you, nah, I'm sorry. I appreciate the offer and everything. I appreciate you thinking about me, but nah, I'm good." Well, about 6 months later, I was asked, and I said, "Well, I'll tell you what, I'll pray about it." Well, Hillcrest has always impressed me. Yeah. I've always been impressed by Hillcrest because when I would leave Calvary to go home, which is about a mile the other way, I would see them out here working on Vacation Bible School. And man, they went all out on Vacation Bible School. And I thought, wow, that church has got it going on. And I don't even know if I knew hardly anybody here. But I told them that last time they asked me, I said, "I'll tell you what, I'll pray about it." So you might see my resume and not even want me. But in the meantime, again, God worked on me. God worked on my wife, both of us.
Yes.
And we knew beyond a shadow of doubt that God wanted us to pursue this and to, pray about it more. And so we talked with them. And they said, "Can we hear you preach?" And I was a nervous wreck. But I ended up at my home church, Cedar Shoals, over on 247. And I preached one night. They wanted to meet with me the next night. And the meeting went well. I could tell God was all in it. We got everything worked out. So 2 weeks from then, I was going to preach a trial sermon. But now, preparing messages for youth and doing activities for youth, that's different than pastoring.
Yes.
You know that.
Yes.
So here I was trying to come up with a message for a church that I was in view of a call kind of thing.
Yes.
So I said, "God, what do I say? What do you want me to preach on? What's the text, God? Help me out." All I could hear God would say was, "Just tell them I love them. Just tell them I love them." So, of course, John 3:16 comes up. I'm thinking, this is too simple. And I felt God saying, "Hey, let's make it simple. Just tell them I love them." And on that Sunday morning, I preached the most simplest sermon you ever heard in your life on John 3:16. And I was voted in 100%. And that was just another confirmation from God for me.
Yes.
But the thing about it is, over these 14 years, God has confirmed it over and over and over. I am so blessed to be here working among these people that I love so dearly. And I see their heart for ministry. And I tell them all the time, I cannot wait to see what God's going to do next.
Yes.
I cannot wait. When I came here, I got a heart for missions.
Yes.
We try to be in the community. And there was one year I said, "Hey," I went to India one year.
Yes.
With pastors on the mission trip. And I came back and I said, "Who will go with me?" And I had people in their 70s, one in their 70s, one in the 60s, on down. There was 5 of us went. And so not only I tell them here, I don't want to. We do missions at Hillcrest, I want us to do it biblically.
Yes.
Some people say, "Why do you go on the other side of the world?" There's people that's lost here. Absolutely right.
That's right.
But I want to do it biblically.
Yeah.
I want to do it here. I want to do it in the state. I want to do it out of the state. I want to do it out of the country, because there's people on the other side of the world that's lost and dying. We got to get the message to them.
Right. Sure. And speaking of that, I know, and that was one of the questions I was going to ask, because I know how your church has embraced that mindset of missions work, and not just in the community here, but outside of the community. And I noticed how you have the Lazarus Project that y'all do at Hillcrest. And for people that don't know, that's where Hillcrest goes out and they help repair or build roofs, decks, and help people that are houses that are have a need, and go in and try to help those things. How did that come up, and how and with your background, was that something that you came up with, the congregation came up with, or how did that?
Okay. We, for years, for like probably 17 or 18 years, I've been involved with something called ACOE Outreach in Cleveland, Tennessee.
Yes.
I'm good friends with Randy, who is over that, Randy Bonner, with CrossNet Network out there. But I saw the way they did it. I went back. There was a program starting in the Christian Ministries Department at Anderson University. And it had a lot of concentration on leadership.
Yes.
So I thought, well, it was a master's of ministry degree, but a lot of leadership was in it. So I went over there and started school again. And in 2011, I graduated. But before we graduated, the capstone course of the master's degree is to develop a ministry, run that ministry for a little bit, document things, take photos, all this stuff, and report back. Show us the ministry that you came up with, So I decided to call it Lazarus Projects, and it's projects plural because there was already a Lazarus Project somewhere in the United States. So I put an S on it.
Yeah.
But then I put a little tagline under it. I put Lazarus Projects, resurrecting homes for the glory of God.
Yes.
I going off of Lazarus, of course, a bit of a story, but resurrecting homes for the glory of God. And so I had to have assessment sheets. We go out and we assess the home, see what it is. Is it within our realm? Is it within our scope of something we can do? And they need to sign off on it. We're a ragtag bunch. We're not professionals. We're just going to try our best to help out. But so I did PowerPoint slides and everything. There was one home that we re-roofed it. We repainted it. We put new shutters on the front. We redone all the picket rails and the posts up under the front. We did a lot of stuff. And so I documented that, and then I documented handicap ramps and stuff. So I presented it to the professor and the other students, and made an A on it. So that was awesome. But that's how it all began. I even had T-shirts made, and all that kind of stuff. But even through that, I have seen God. There's people that started coming to the church because they saw what we did, because we were in the community. But I've seen God also, just like it appeared in the Williamston Journal, I think one day last year, year before last, over on the other side of town, there was a small white home that, there was a lot needed to be done there.
Yes. But
all of a sudden we have different individuals said, I'll come and roof it. It won't cost y'all anything. And then, organizations in town, I'll provide the paint. There's people in our community. A lot of people don't realize it. There's people and businesses in our community that's looking for ways to help. That's when the local church needs to organize some things, work together, and say, hey, this is happening. Would you like to help? Because honestly, they're really wanting to help. They just don't know an avenue sometime that they can.
That's
So
right.
they're able to do it. And I believe when that happens, God orchestrates everything. God's already working through that for them to be able to give it.
That's
You know,
right.
let's work together for the cause of Christ.
That's right. And it takes the church to find those needs, because like you said, the businesses are doing their business work and they want to help out. But as the church, we should be looking just like Jesus did and see the needs of the people that we're ministering to and the communities that we're living in, not just the ones that we're ministering to, but the communities that we're living in, and have that mindset of, hey, we're going to help. And I really believe that, especially in a community like ours of 4,000 people.
Right.
There's a lot of needs. We're a mill town, and all those mills, most of them have shut down. And there's a lot of people in our community that are needing help, not just through your words. They want to see that you care. And the way that you can care is start helping them with their needs in those spots. Right.
Let me tell you this. Last night, and this will just be a plug for anybody out there. I don't have one with me, but last night I know it's a different time with this COVID, and we were careful. We wore masks when we went out. But last night we did a community canvas night, and we had these pieces of paper telling them who we are, what we're doing. But we're going to have a community care day on August the 15th.
Yes.
And I've already talked with Joel Lopez down at First Baptist, because they wanted to be involved with our next Lazarus project or whatever. So they're going to be involved on the 15th. But what we're going to do is nothing major, but we said that we'd wash a car. We will pressure wash a house. We'll rake leaves, we'll clean up limbs or trash or whatever. So we had a sheet that they could mark what they would like for us to help them with. So we gathered up a lot of sheets. I don't know if we can do them all in one day, but if there's any other churches that might be listening to this, this is not about Hillcrest. It's about being the hands and feet of
That's
try
right.
to be out. So anybody that wants to be involved with that on August 15th, man, let me know. I would love for you to be.
Definitely. We'll talk after this, because I believe, we need to get involved also. And again, like you said, I talked to a local pastor, Trey Hanning. He was on Traveling Stories, and how our town, we need to start uniting together, no matter in what denomination, no matter, what church we are, and start uniting together and set a revival through us reaching needs by uniting together.
Absolutely.
And I know you said you were 26 years in the youth ministry.
Yep.
And I know that this year you brought on a youth pastor on staff there at Hillcrest. But can you tell me what the difference was when you first started youth ministry with the young people to today? Is there any difference in reaching those, or is there any difference of ministering to young people from when you started till we are today?
I believe, of course, I'm old. I turned 60 this year. I'm old. If we go back when I first started youth ministry, that would have been 1980. To me then, and I talk about this sometime in messages, when I was younger, it just seemed like things were so much more simpler.
Yes.
Young people today are dealing with things I didn't have to deal with, or didn't have to deal with when I started youth ministry in 1980. But now some of the basic stuff that they deal with, as far as relationships, and all this stuff, I can name them all. Some of that's still the same, but I don't know. I even believe today what we see happen, if you turn on the news, you can see it. It's almost like the threads of that's held society together are coming apart.
Yes.
And what is that saying to our young people?
Definitely.
Our young people are seeing, how some adults are acting.
Yes.
And that affects them. Well, you're telling me to do this? Well, look at what I'm seeing, kind of thing. So I honestly think there's a lot of similarities, but there's a lot of differences too. And I think the challenge for student ministers today is really navigating in this time of uncertainty. But I believe now student ministry is even more vital, and I'll try to explain that, than it was in 1980, because in such a time of uncertainty, I believe the one thing that students need, or several things students need, even more now than they did then, even though it's so important then, they need to know that somebody loves them.
Yes.
And, and that's just across the board. They need to know that somebody cares for them and loves them. And the one person that loves them unconditionally is Jesus Christ.
Yes.
And we've got to bridge that gap. We've got to, whatever they're going through, I have noticed that there's some students that come here, and you can tell they need to just be loved on.
Yes.
They really do. And once you start caring and once you start loving on them, they're going to start listening. Then introduce the gospel, and you're right. We brought on, it's the first, now I've been here 14 years. I think years and years ago, they used to have someone in a paid position, but we brought Brady Henderson on back in December. I believe he's doing a phenomenal job. I don't know how he does what he does. I tell him, you need to slow down. I don't want you burning out or whatever, because he's always, but I think you, just by what you're doing here, this is ministry, and I really, really appreciate you doing it and what your church is doing and everything. But I've had to learn a lot. We're trying to use social media. We're trying to, use things to do ministry we've never had. It bothered me so bad when we had to basically shut the church doors, even though ministry continued.
Yes. Church
continued, but we were online. I don't like just doing church online, man. I got to be with the people,
That's right.
But yeah, it's student ministry. I don't know if I definitively answered that, but it's a challenge. It really is a challenge, but man, love on them and tell them about Jesus. All that is the same, and it's been that way forever.
Yes, and I look at it, and I think it's in Numbers where it talks about there grew up a generation that didn't know the knowledge and works of God. And I believe, and if you look at that, the reason why they didn't is because of the generation before them didn't pass that down. And I believe we live in a society and a culture now where in 1980 there was a mindset of, hey, we're going to church. And then there was a group of that middle age that decided, hey, we're not going to do that anymore. We're going to, go get a job. We're going to, kind of rebel a little bit. And I think we're seeing the fruits of that as the years go on.
Absolutely.
We looked at it where it was, 1990s was a generation that, we're going to go do our own thing. We're going to rebel against the system, that kind of thing. And now we're dealing with that in 2020. But as you said, it comes back to showing that we care and showing that we love, because there's a lot of kids out there. As you know, I've been working at a local primary school some, and there's kids out there that they don't see mom and dad, but maybe an hour a night, or because they're working all day, or they're dealing with things around the house, And we grew up, that generation grew up on a TV family. You know what I mean? And
I said it all through my student ministry. I've probably voiced it here before too. And this sort of goes along similar with what you're saying, the way it is at home. I know people are struggling to make it, and things, it's that. But there's one comment I want to say, because people used to ask me when I was in student ministry in a leadership position and this, that, and other, they would ask me, What do you think the number one problem with youth is today? I have an answer for that, and I believe it still rings true. I believe the number one problem with youth today, I know some people might be shocked because I'm going to say this. I think the number one problem is parents.
Yes.
Over the years, I've noticed, you know what? Love on your kids.
Yes.
Spend time with your kids. I know you might not have much, but 10 minutes of quality good time is better than 2 hours of looking at them every now and then while you got the remote in your hand or while you're on your phone surfing or on Facebook and all this kind of stuff. You know, there's parents that'll send their kids to church for the church and the student ministry to raise them. That's not what student ministry is about.
No.
Parents need to be parents. And I know I'm on a high horse here, okay? But parents need to be parents. And they need, even though it hurts sometimes to discipline and raise your children, do it because parents don't need to try their best to be their kid's best friend.
Yes.
And a lot of times I see some trying to be best friends.
Yes.
No, I mean, I believe you can be a friend, but you got to be a parent.
That's
okay?
right.
And I think we're seeing the fruit of some years of parents being best friends.
That's right.
Our parents not spending time, and I know it's hard sometimes to find time, but you only have them for just a small window of their life. But that small window, what you do in that small window is going to affect the rest of their life.
Yes. Yes. And you know, and it seems like that window keeps getting smaller and smaller too, because, you know, now we're seeing kids 16, 17 years old moving out, trying to be adults when they hadn't even had, you know, a childhood or a teenage, lived that teenage life. And I totally agree with you. I believe the reason why we're seeing what we're seeing is the fruits of what we did 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago. And that's the reason why we're at where we're at today. Also, we bring this up towards the end of every one of our conversations. If you just preach the sermon, somebody got saved and they've given their life to God. And what would be the first, we know, you know, through the getting to the word, that kind of stuff, but what would you tell them, the first thing, the advice that you would give them now that they have given their life to Jesus?
Well, number one, they're going to have to grow. You know, I know they're going to have to grow, but it's according to what age we're talking about too. Yeah. Children, we want them to grow. We want everyone in leadership positions that has anything to do with them and parents to really help them grow. We want them to find what God wants them to do, and we're going to have to nurture. We're going to have to pour into them. I think the church does a poor job with that sometimes. Yeah. I'll be honest. In most churches, discipleship is weak.
Yes.
Across the board, you know. And I'm not saying that we at Hillcrest, we need to do a whole lot better job of discipleship.
That's right.
If they're older, to me, I would like to set them down and just talk to them, see where they're at and what they're going to have to grow too. That's Some right. have grown up in church their whole life. They know all the stories. They know all Jesus has done, but Jesus has become real to them now. Yeah. So very quickly, I'd want to say, okay, let's find out, how can God use you? Where can you serve? I think the quicker we can get people serving and being a part of growing the body, man, I think that's vital. That's so important. Yeah. There's a place for everyone to serve. Sure. You just have to navigate that and try to figure out where, you know.
That's right. Yeah, and I totally agree with you. I totally agree with you because it's time that we start, not just because of age either, because like I know teenagers, a lot of times we say, well, they're not old enough to serve, or they're not old enough to sing on a praise team, or they're not old enough to sing in the choir, or they're not old enough to be greeters or stuff like that. But if you want to see people grow, mentor them up with somebody in that position.
Look,
and have them grow with them, and if they're singers, put them on the choir, but put them with somebody that is biblically sound, that is growing, and put them with those people. Yeah, and let them serve together. And I think we're in a time that, and most, I know in the millennial, because I'm at the older age of the millennials, I'm still hanging into that millennial spot.
I think I'm a boomer, man.
But from the research that I've done through millennials to the next generation, is that they want to see an impact. They don't want to just hear about an impact. They don't want to just hear about a movement of God. They want to be a part of a movement of God. They want to be a part of an impact. And if we don't put them in those positions to be a part of that impact, we're going to lose them very, very quickly. And so, well, with that being said, Pastor Larry, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, and if you are ever in the Williamston area and you're not at Restoration Chapel, I'll just throw that out there. Stop by Hillcrest. Hillcrest is located on Main Street. What's the address there, Pastor Larry?
1300 Anderson Drive.
1300 Anderson Drive. It's the coolest building ever. I think y'all's building is the coolest building ever. The way it's shaped. I love the way it's shaped. Also, and maybe we can do this again, but we didn't get into talking about Vacation Bible School. If you ever see Hillcrest is doing a Vacation Bible School, you need to send your kids to Hillcrest. They do an awesome job with their Vacation Bible School. And you know it because they'll start putting stuff on the outside. I mean, they decorate it out. I know this year's kind of a little crazy, and we hadn't been able to have Vacation Bible Schools with everything that's going on. But please stop by and see Hillcrest. See Pastor Larry. I know he's probably usually at the front door waving at you as you come in.
Oh, yeah.
And tell him that you heard him on Traveling Stories. And just trust me, the people there will love on you. I see them out in public all the time, and they're always, hey, Pastor, how you doing, Pastor? And anything we can do for you, Pastor. And I thank you. And the fruit is showing, Pastor Larry. I'll just let you know from Hillcrest. The fruit. But thank you so much for joining us. Any last words you want to tell our audience?
Well, man, no matter who you are, no matter what you're doing right now or what you've done in the past, God loves you exactly where you are. He loves you, and he wants to be a part of your life.
Amen. Amen. And I truly believe that, and I love that statement because no matter, like you said, no matter what you've done, whatever matter, even what you think you're going to do, God still loves you.
Amen.
And none of us are perfect. We've all made mistakes and fall short of the glory of God, and he still loves us no matter what we've done. Thank you so much. Thank you again, Pastor Larry. Thank you to all that have joined us today. We're excited that you have joined us. If you would like to hear these, they're on Spotify, Google Podcasts, they're on Apple Podcasts, they're on Anchor. Anywhere you can find podcasts, you will find Traveling Stories. Just type in Restoration Chapel Traveling Stories. If you want to watch this, you can watch it on Facebook Live or on YouTube. We leave them up so you can go back and watch it also if you want to go back and watch them. And please be checking us out and like the page so you can see these. They come out every Wednesday night at 6 o'clock. We want to say God bless you from Hillcrest Church, from Restoration Chapel. We love you. We're praying for each and every one of you. And we're excited that we've heard the story. Now we're going to go out and make our own stories. God bless you, and we love each and every one of you.